Guys, I think I've just found the most beautiful nocturne, and we're gonna analyze it today. When you hear the word nocturne, there's a good chance you immediately think of Chopin. And like, who wouldn't, right?
That's why he's the GOAT!
His nocturnes have become the defining examples of the genre. But what if I told you that this one, the most beautiful in my opinion, wasn't written by Chopin? This is John Field's Nocturne in C minor, a piece that predates Chopin's own nocturnes, and in many ways helped to shape them. Throughout the analysis, when we go through the piece, you will notice moments that sound surprisingly familiar. Some harmonic ideas, melodic gestures, even the overall atmosphere. And by the end of the video, you'll see just how much influence John Field had on Chopin. So let's get into it. There are a few characteristics of the piece that I would like to point out first. First is the melody. The rhythm is pretty simple. It's two 16th notes, followed by a quarter note, and then we are switching between 8th note and quarter note. So 8th note, quarter note, 8th note, quarter note, 8th note, quarter note. The other characteristics is a contra melody that we have in a left hand. When we play these two lines together, it sounds like this. And a third characteristic is those triplets in the left hand. Those are like the three constants that stay throughout the whole track. The melody, of course, shifts and differs, but we are always coming back to this motif of 16th notes followed by quarter note, then 8th note to quarter notes, right? The accompaniment doesn't change at all. We always staying on the triplet rhythm, and the left hand melody is coming back a few times. It's not present throughout the whole track, but it's there. So let's get into the piece. We start on an upbeat with the first two 16th notes, and the G note starts our first bar. They serve a couple functions. They're introductory, right? So they introduce us into the main motif, this. They also introduce us to the tonality, which is C minor. The melody simply outlines the chord of C minor. Yeah, we go from C to E flat to G, and we repeat the G note. And the accompaniment also stays in C minor, right? We go C, G, E flat in the melody. C, G, E flat. On bar 3, the harmony changes. We go here. And then back to C minor in bar 4. So the third bar contains a harmony of, it's a diminished chord. I would argue it's an A flat diminished with a C pedal tone. Yeah, because we have C in the bass. And also we have a nice appoggiatura in the melody with the B flat, which then resolves to A flat, and we resolve to C minor back. Alright, so the first 4 bars sounds like this. C minor. One more time. A flat diminished. Resolving to C minor. Now we are on the move. The 5th bar takes us to A flat major. We repeat the melody just a 5th lower, but the same rhythm, right? Now we have C natural instead of G. And it continues like this. So what happens here? After the A flat major, we go to this chord. And what is that? It's a D diminished. It's a 2 chord in the tonality of C minor. But we have F in the bass. So it means this is a first inversion of the chord. We have the appoggiatura again. But what's also interesting is that there is this C note still present. The C acts as a pivot note throughout this opening. Pivot note is a note that is shared between consecutive chords. We had it in the A flat major, right? We had it in the melody even. Then it's present in this chord as well. The next chord is another diminished chord. We could interpret it as F sharp diminished, which nicely leads us to the dominant of the key, which is G. But before that, we get C minor in second inversion. So that means we have the dominant, we have G in the bass. And the C minor, of course, again contains the C note. And the F sharp diminished contained it as well. So this pivot note takes us from the first chord, which was A flat major, right? From the first chord, all the way to the very last, which is C minor in second inversion, which nicely leads to G major or G dominant, the dominant of this tonality, and it resolves to C minor. So that's the whole opening. That's just the section that we're gonna be coming back to as well. Let's play it again. A flat major, D flat diminished, F sharp diminished, C in the second inversion, G dominant, C minor. And then we repeat this basically again. We repeat the 16th note motif. So we resolved here. We repeat the motif. There we also get this lovely polyrhythm. We're repeating it. And this time it leads us right here. So let's go more deeply into what just happened now. After the repetition of the main theme, after this, it seems like this is going the same place, but then instead of repeating the C minor, we go to A flat major. This is F sharp diminished again. After the F sharp, we go to B flat major, which resolves into E flat major. And E flat major is a relative major to our C minor, relative major to our tonality. This is a very classical move, but you can see how Chopin took inspiration in this. When the piece takes place in a minor chord, you usually pivot into its relative major, which in this case, C minor, and its relative major is E flat major. When the piece is in major, let's say we would be in E flat, then it usually pivots to its dominant, which in this case would be B flat major. Before we go any further in the piece, let's just showcase just how much. Before we continue with the piece, just let's appreciate how much Chopin took inspiration from this man. Because this sounds like something Chopin would wrote, right? You have this legato lines, the singable melody, the appoggiaturas. You of course have this lovely arpeggios in the left hand. The overall harmonic progression is also very similar, right? We are establishing our tonal center, C minor in the beginning. Then we are prolonging the tonic with those dominant chords. Even though it is a dominant chord, it's not a cadence per se. It's called prolonging the tonic. Like in the third bar where we had the A flat diminished chord, right? This is just prolonging to tonic. Because we could have 4 bars of C minor to really establish the tonality, right? But that would be pretty boring. So we use this diminished chord, which is actually also in inversion, and also it's with a pedal tone to really prolong it without being boring. So let's continue for now. We will see some other resemblance very shortly. We're in E flat right now. We go to C minor again. And now there's interesting that the C minor now doesn't really feel like home, doesn't feel like a tonal center, because the C minor right here has a different function. Where previously it was a tonic, right now it's more of a modulation into the next chord, which is gonna be an F major, right? So you see we are in C minor now. F minor in the first inversion, and also the appoggiatura again. This is this F sharp diminished again, which then leads to this. This is an E flat major in its second inversion, which again leads to its dominant, which is B flat major. And it resolves into E flat. We also have this nice decoration. And E flat will be our home for this whole next section, right? So from there, this is actually the first motif that we have in the beginning, right? It's this. Right now it's just higher in pitch, and it's of course in the harmony of E flat major. We also have a forte marking here, which is really like energetic. This chord, this is nice, isn't it? This is E flat minor, so we quickly detour from E flat major to E flat minor before we come here. So what just happened? From the E flat minor, we go to B flat in its second inversion with D in the bass, F dominant, which leads to B major in its root position. It's a really nice, it's like a walking bass, right? We go from E flat to D to C to B flat. So once again from E flat minor, B flat in its first inversion, F dominant, second inversion, B flat major in its root position. What follows is this. We get to A flat minor, E flat, back to A flat minor, B flat major, being dominant of what? Of E flat major. This is something new. We haven't heard this before. When we land on this E flat major, we have G in the bass right now. It's still E flat, but now it's E flat dominant, which is leading us to A flat major. But we also have this beautiful appoggiatura that actually resolves upwards this time instead of downwards. It sounds like this. Appoggiatura resolving. Then we get an interesting chord, which is actually an augmented chord. So from A flat major, we get A flat augmented, which leads us to F dominant. And we basically do the same right now, from F major to B flat major. The first time it was from E flat dominant to A flat major. Now it's from F dominant to B flat major. And we always have this augmented chord in between. So let's listen to the whole section now. This is another augmented chord with accent on this D note. So one more time. We went from E flat dominant to A flat major, and then from F dominant to B flat major. From the B flat we form a B flat augmented chord, and now this is G dominant, which leads us to C minor. So we actually came from full circle to return to C minor. Again with the appoggiatura. We can also accent this D a lot. That's beautiful. And what happens now? Let's hear it. And so on. So we basically drop the whole bass right now. We really move the accompaniment really high in pitch, right? The melody moves to A flat. This is an A flat major in its first inversion. Then we get the chromaticism, which leads us to B flat dominant. And now we would resolve that into E flat again. But we don't actually do that right now. Instead, we go to a diminished chord. And now we get the E flat major, but now it kind of loses its impact, right? The resolution isn't that strong right now. Let's listen to it again. From the E flat, we go to F dominant, back to E flat, B flat diminished, which would again lead us to A flat, but we again get the diminished chord instead. And it resolves actually into C minor this time, with some chromaticism in the bass. It goes from B natural to C to B flat. Let's play this whole section again, because it's really interesting, right? The diminish. Even though we resolve eventually into C minor, the resolution still feels pretty weak, right? And now we get F dominant. With this really nice, really lovely run. This is an E flat in its first inversion with G in the bass. And again, the appoggiatura. We get another run, which eventually leads us to here. Which is a cadence in E flat major. So let's play through this ending of this section again, right? Let's start with the F dominant. And now we return to the original section that we've heard in the beginning. Oh, this is something new. Now we're moving the melody up into C. This is very interesting. I want to talk about this a little deeply because it's a really interesting part. So as I said, we move the melody into C right here. Then we get B flat. And now the harmony also changes. It's not C minor anymore. It's actually C dominant right now. We got this E natural, which is leading note, into F. And it leads to F minor actually. And immediately back to C minor. And what I want to talk about is the F minor chord. Because it's very interesting. We didn't hear this chord before in this composition yet. And what's interesting about it, well, there are a couple things. The first one, the more like on the surface, it's this really nice plagal kind of cadence back into the C minor, right? We get this. Oh, this is lovely. I love this. This plagal cadence is such a beautiful transition, and also with the melody moving from A flat to down into G. Oh, that's really nice. And the more interesting part is something that I'm not really sure if it is called that way, but it's something like musical foreshadowing. The F minor chord is really brief, right? It only stays for a third of the bar. Then it just goes back to C minor. But it foreshadows future events because after this, the starting section, the next part, the next section is whole in F minor. We will get into it eventually. But for now, it's really interesting that we get this F minor, which we haven't heard before in this composition. Where we could have just repeated it exactly the same, right? The opening section could have been, we could have just repeated the same thing again. We could have just had the diminished chord as we had it before. But no, this time, we get the F minor, which indicates that in the future, the next section is gonna be taking place in F minor. And I find this really neat, really nice. But let's stop glazing that F minor, even though it's a beautiful chord, right? Let's move on. So after that, we land to C minor again. And from now on, it's the same thing. We go to A flat major. Now the second chord. Now the D diminished. F sharp diminished. Yeah, you know the drill. And now, the payoff of that setup, the payoff of that foreshadowing, the foreshadowed F minor is paid off right now with the next section, which begins in F minor. We also get a forte marking, making it really powerful. This is really, let's play through it. It's really nice, right? A flat major. Ah, that's powerful. That's really nice, isn't it? This is B flat minor in second inversion, so we keep the F in the bass and we play a B flat minor over it. Right, so F minor, B flat minor, and now this is C dominant, which is leading us back to F minor. You get this nice lovely appoggiatura again, now in the middle voice, it's this, and now it resolves to F. but you have the C all the time in the melody, so it's together it sounds like this. Wonderful. And now G minor. We go to pianissimo in the dynamics. The dynamics, it's a really nice contrast between the dynamics, right? We had the forte with the F minor, really loud, really powerful, and now you have this intimate and quiet pianissimo. Now we go to C minor. A little bit of chromaticism in the bass when we get to A natural. And this next chord that follows is actually a French augmented 6. This chord. This is really interesting, right? And it resolves to G. G dominant, or G major, rather. So from the G minor, and now we get something really interesting. It's a new texture that we haven't heard before. It's actually the same motif that we had in the very beginning. It's this repeating G note, quarter note, eighth note, quarter note, eighth note, quarter note. The pitches change now a little bit. We don't stay on the G for the whole time. We go from G to B to A flat, C, back to B, D to C, and so on. But between that, you get this decoration. And this lasts for 4 bars. And I really love those 4 bars, because they are the exact interpretation of what Nocturne is, in my opinion. It's this wonderful harmonic, textural, melodic combination of all those aspects to create something out of this world. It's really nice. The harmony is, if you were to break it down, we are basically cycling between G dominant and C minor, the 2 main chords in this composition. But I tend to not think of it that way, because you have this really interesting movement in the bass, where you have a walking bass. You go from B natural all the way to E flat, and then you are basically changing the chords in your right hand. But as I said, I don't really think of it as a G dominant to C minor. I just think of it as one section, one whole harmony. And I think it should be interpreted that way. Let's listen to it. Beautiful. Now what happens next is that we get another diminished chord. And it resolves to F minor. Then we get this lovely texture. We're cycling through different chords. It's A flat major, then this chord that's basically in between, which leads to A flat dominant. Instead of resolving the A flat dominant, we just transform it to G dominant slowly. There is the G dominant, which resolves to C minor. Almost. It doesn't resolve to the C, to the home note. It actually resolves to E flat in the melody, so it's a little more interesting. It goes like this. But now the same thing, just an octave higher. This last chord is different. It's not C minor anymore, it's C diminished. And it leads to D minor. Which is really interesting, since we didn't have this chord before. D minor is not part of the tonality of C minor. It's a borrowed chord from the tonality of C major actually. But we don't stay there for too long, because we move on. It goes like this. Diminished chord again. It goes there, which is an augmented chord. This is really nice from the diminished chord. These are two like very weird chords or weird transition between the two, right? Just listen to it. As the name suggests, the diminished chord is very like closed in, and the augmented chord is like really open. So seeing these two next to each other, or hearing them, I mean, it's really jarring, but it's really nice. C minor again. In the next bar we get this. Basically just a prolongation of the C minor, which then transforms into C dominant actually. C minor, C dominant, F major. This is really nice. You would expect a C minor here, right? Instead you get the major version, which is really nice. Another augmented chord. And another cadence into C minor. This is a very similar chord progression to the beginning, right? We went from C minor to A flat major to this D diminished in its first inversion with the C, with the pedal tone, right? And this does the same. It's a little different, right? It's a little bit differently put together, but harmonically it's the same. You go from the C minor to this. It's weird, right? This B natural is really jarring in that. Also this fall by the seventh. And now we get a G dominant. This is cheeky. It doesn't lead to C minor, it leads to A flat major. It's a deceptive cadence. And now we get yet another runs. And what follows now is just basically a coda, a part to end the piece. This repeats then one more time, but we end more decisively, more definitely. Also, what I forgot to mention is that right now I played it wrong. I played it as is not written down in the sheet music. It's written a octave higher. But what I usually do is first time around I play it an octave lower, and then the second time when I repeat that I play it correctly in the right register, right? So the second time it goes like this, or it ends like this. And that's it. This is the most beautiful nocturne, in my opinion. As you could see in this analysis and here, there are pretty obvious influences by Chopin from John Field. Its melody, its accompaniment, those scale runs, ornamentation, everything. This sounds like Chopin. And if it wasn't for John Field, for this man that doesn't get recognized as much as he should, in my opinion. If he wasn't for him, we maybe couldn't have Chopin. We wouldn't have him, right? Anyways, enough of yapping. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.